That's not my outfit.
It's Death by Monsters.
Welcome, hello, and forsooth thy melancholy dream upon thy desolate creation, you mythical quirky quackers.
Oh.
Cool.
If you don't know what a quacker is, please Google it and then send a picture to Death by Monsters and all forms of social media. I didn't know what they were, and I feel as though my life is now less of a dismal hellscape, just having looked into their furry little Paddington bear faces.
I have to tell you, I got real nervous for a second that you were telling people to just Google something random and then send us images of it.
Please don't do that.
But then I realized what exactly they would be Googling, and now I'm fully on board.
Yes, that's fine. But please don't send us random images.
Why say that? Why?
Please, whatever you do not send us random images to Death by Monsters podcast@gmail.com.
Quackers are these really cute little marsupials. Oh, God, they're amazing.
They are so derpy.
Always looking.
They look like a little creature that Star Wars would create to sell stuffed toys.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. They kind of do. That's a great description.
Like a porg or an Ewok.
This is Death by Monsters, a show about monsters, mysteries, and quackers.
Also the unknown.
And I'm joined by Paula Deming,
Hello, everyone.
Nick Murphy.
Cheer!
Oh.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
That's how you go. That's how you go with cheer.
You sounded like you sneezed.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what was happening.
And my name is Matthew Jude. This week's episode has just a bunch of caveats that I need to get through, so I'll start there. The topic this week started off as, let's do something lighter this week after 2 shows about demons and witches and ghosts. So I decided to delve into the Shakespearean authorship conspiracy.
Oh, and I'm a big theater nerd, so I got really pumped about it.
Yes, you are. Parts of that sentence are definitely true. I thought this would be fun and light. You know, make fun of a few historical figures, maybe say forsooth a bunch. And while we will be doing that for sure, what I wasn't expecting was to spend a whole week falling down the most fascinating rabbit hole I've ever fallen into to unearth what I can only describe as the most complicated, academic, and protested mystery of all time.
Dun, dun, dun.
It is very interesting.
I've had a very long week.
I also have done, I'll be honest right now, more research on this than any other. Look, Matthew always does a ton of research for our episodes. I have done so much for this one because, like Matthew said, everything I looked up, I went, but wait a minute, what about? And then I Googled that, and then I went, but wait a minute, what about? And now my YouTube algorithm is completely fucked.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
It's in a more academic way than, Bigfoot.
Some of it gets a little suddenly I've got the Masons in my, and I'm like, I don't care about secret Mason hand gestures.
Not to mention, so many of these are there's all these ciphers and codes. I thought it was going to be people just arguing about, nah, this guy named Bob
Damn
wrote
it, Nick!
Nick, stop taking my bit.
Sorry, I'm just trying to say that it ended up being way more, like you were saying, intellectual and complicated. I thought it was just going to be random ass theories that people were throwing out. I didn't know it was going to be this whole. It was so fascinating and hard to follow.
It ended up somewhere that I wasn't expecting it to go, which was really interesting, especially at hour 3 of this one documentary I was watching.
Yes.
I'll forgo for now the brief biography of William Shakespeare, as I feel pretty confident that most people will have some understanding that he was probably some author or some shit that wrote that film with Leonardo DiCaprio in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what many have also most likely heard is that there have been, throughout history, those that have doubted the man from Stratford's ability to have actually penned the plays. Shakespeare is certainly the most famous playwright of all time, other than perhaps Virgil and Ovid. He is the most famous poet of all time, I'd argue, full stop, and he is, by my estimation, the most important literary figure of all time, along with Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, Dickens, Austen, Pushkin, Wilde, Joyce, and my favourite, Hermann Hesse. I just like him, okay? Fucking sue me.
Tolkien, but whatever. Your whole opinion is invalid, so whatever.
Tolkien.
Dude, Tolkien's the frickin' best, dude. Dostoevsky, who cares?
Just so many people. The problem with Shakespeare isn't the greatness of his work. The problem is that, unlike so many other authors, there is the seed of doubt as to the authorship. But I will also add here, at the top of the show, is everyone loves a mystery.
It's true.
especially one that can prove so many people wrong all at once. And that is why I'll be laughing all the way to the goddamn Nobel Peace Prize when I discover Bigfoot. That's right, Peace Prize. I know there's other prizes, but Bigfoot will bring us all together.
It really will.
Somehow you had to bring, even Shakespeare, you have to bring back around to Bigfoot.
Well, I feel as if it was valid.
Okay.
I also love that you win the Peace Prize. I think it's fair. You're bringing everyone together. I love it. I love it. I'm with you, Matthew.
It's like the Olympics. Bigfoot would be a Bigfoot at the Olympics would be the most peace-inducing.
Just running along with that Olympic torch, taking it on its last leg, climbing up to the top of the stadium, lighting that thing on fire.
And then accidentally catching his own fur on fire, and he goes up in flames, and the last Yeti dies, and then
It
everyone
engulfs in front of everyone. Children are scarred.
World War III starts, and
And running up the final 200 meters, here's Bigfoot. Yes, he's in. Oh my God!
so get some water.
3 steps before he made it to the eternal flame. Paula, you've got a caveat of your own.
Well, I just feel like now, like I mentioned earlier, for those of you who don't know this about me, I'm a big theater nerd. I love Shakespeare. I love acting in Shakespeare. I love reading Shakespeare. I love everything about it. I will be approaching this topic very much from the mind of an actor, which I don't think is the way that a lot of the people who are looking at this really think about it. I don't think they filter it through a actual performance and theater mindset. But there are actors who hold Shakespeare's work as like sacred, almost like it's like the Bible or something.
Yeah.
And I will say that I am not one of those people. I think that there's a lot of typos. There's a lot of things that were probably put in by mistake by printers.
You can say it.
I think
Garbage.
that there's room to interpret some things in the writing as an actor. As an actor, you're taught remove all the punctuation in Shakespeare because he didn't write it in. It was put in later by editors. So it's open to interpretation. So that's one mindset I'm approaching things from. And so as we go, I don't know, I think it's going to be interesting. I think there are going to be some things that I'm going to be 100% on board with that we talk about. And there are some other things that I'm going to be like super like, nah, and those things might feel like they're conflicting with each other. Like, why do you believe this but not this? I don't know. But that's just kind of the mindset I'm coming from as we approach this. 'Cause I freaking love Shakespeare.
I love the disclaimer up front. I'm excited for Paula's part of this episode.
Let me tell you, I know something about internal conflict. I consider wherever I am to be a theatre of dreams.
Yeah, because you're always on.
Always on.
I also want to credit some of my sources for this episode, and that being the work and lectures of Tom Regnier and Alexander Warm, and a documentary series that I'll talk about later on. So, I'll start this story with the problem itself, why there is any doubt to begin with. We don't have any doubts that Kerouac wrote On the Road, that Sylvia Plath wrote The Bell Jar, or that Mark Twain wrote Huckleberry Finn. These names are on the books, like Shakespeare's name appears on some of the plays. Only, that's not completely true. Mark Twain didn't write Huckleberry Finn. There is no Mark Twain. That's Samuel Clemens.
Yeah, a pseudonym.
Twain is a pen name, and there were no other time in history that people used so many pen names as the Elizabethan era.
I was like, oh wait, you paused. Were you expecting us to have something witty to say in response to that?
Every time I pause, I need jokes. Every time I pause, jokes.
I missed the laugh. Shit, I missed the laugh. Sorry, hold on. Let me go back.
Why did the Elizabethan cross the road?
If you've got a punchline to this, I will be flabbergasted.
Get to the play on the other side.
I was going to say because the road he was on was too rough.
Oh.
Like a ruff that you wear in Elizabethan times.
Oh, I get it now. Thank you for
I didn't
explaining
get it at all. I just want to put that out there.
But, I have a better one. Because the Queen told him he had to.
That'll do it. Let me tell you.
Excuse me, sir. You cross the street. All right. End of joke.
Sorry, my lady. The evidence thrown against Shakespeare fills more pages than he ever allegedly wrote. So I'm going to go through some of it, but not all of it, by a country mile. Many point to the grammar school in Stratford-on-Avon, a place where Shakespeare gained his education, though there's no record of him ever actually having gone there, which isn't crazy given the time, and he certainly would have been able to read and write if he had gone there, but the education he would have received would not have been to the standard needed for the works he created, given the voluminous, how do you say that word?
Voluminous?
Yes. Given the voluminous references that are in his plays.
That's so. I've never heard anyone use voluminous in quite that way before, and I'm trying to decide if I like it.
I like it.
I think it's fine. You can continue.
I like the word voluminous in general.
I just find it difficult. I've also used the word corroborated in this, and I was having a real hard time.
Your favorite word to try and say, corroborated.
I still not sure I'm saying it right.
Close enough.
The fact with his education is that there have been books written simply on the law as described by Shakespeare in his works. He was a master of the law. But that's not all. For Shakespeare to have written his plays, he would have needed extensive knowledge that many non-Stratfordians, and I'm saying non-Stratfordians rather than anti-Stratfordians, it sounds a slightly less
I like it. It's a little
violent.
less, aggressive.
Yeah,
And I think this whole thing could probably use just a skosh less of aggression.
I agree.
Everyone could just calm their shit just for a second.
Everyone just calm the F down real quick. It'd be great.
It's knowledge that many non-Stratfordians would describe as far beyond the reach of a humble man from Stratford that had no record of ever owning any books. He'd have vast and intimate knowledge on medicine, hunting, falconry, horsemanship, military life, tactics and equipment, philosophy, commedia dell'arte, navigation, classical mythology, folklore, biblical law, Greek, Latin, French, German, and other languages, plants, animals, agriculture, gardening, music, heraldry, precious stones, the goings-on in the royal court, that's a big one, Italy, geography, Greek drama, and 2 books have been written, according to Tom Regnier, who comprised this list. Thank you. His lectures are fantastic. 2 books have been written on his knowledge of typography.
A true Renaissance man, one might say.
Ooh, good one.
And I guess there were no, public libraries where he could look up a bunch of things.
What was Google like back in?
Yeah, could he have just Googled all this
How
stuff?
do you pronounce Google in old-timey English?
It's the same. It's surprising. It's just the same as it is now.
Exactly the same. Google. It's just Google.
And actually, the Wi-Fi signal was a lot better back then because there were less, tall buildings getting in the way.
Yeah, there's no Bluetooth interruption anywhere. It was fantastic, really. What a time to be alive.
it's
And you
great.
could just die for any reason.
You just died. Everyone's like, why'd he die? What's the autopsy show? That he was once alive? Yeah.
I did see that someone died from an everlasting faint.
Ooh.
That means heart attack. I just learned that.
It's a pretty good one.
Oh, I know why
never
we
heard
both
that
know
one.
that. Never mind.
It's because you sent me the video with that reference in it.
An everlasting faint. That's a very nice way of putting a heart attack.
But in the 16th century, you could have just been, how did he die? Well, she was eaten by rats. It wasn't, there were some terrible things.
Demons.
Demons! There are no letters, writings, drafts, notes, or works in Shakespeare's own writing that remain. No paper trail of contracts, payments, nothing. Something that can't be said for almost any other notable and frankly obscure writers of the time. There are some signatures on certain legal documents, around 6, but they are different, and it's thought that probably they were written by different people, them being the person who was issuing whatever legal document that was.
It's just so interesting. Why does nothing survive? Why is there no... And there are other writers of this time period, you said, we do have papers of theirs.
The argument for it is that during his lifetime, there are no records of him as a literary figure. That's the thing. He certainly went to court for certain things, issue with grain hoarding and that kind of stuff. But so did many people in Stratford at the time. He wasn't on his own in that lawsuit or anything. And I think kind of like those things of saying he was a bad person and stuff, there's no evidence to suggest he was like a litigious man or anything like that. But it's just interesting. And while I agree that the lack of evidence does not serve as evidence, it certainly does bolster other theories.
Totally. That he wasn't a real person at all.
He was a ghost.
Yeah, he didn't even exist.
I don't think he existed.
No, he did. He did actually. Okay.
We don't know
He
that.
did actually exist.
You weren't there.
But
You weren't there. You didn't know.
No, we weren't.
Yeah, exactly. Point proven. End of podcast. Boom.
solved.
It's a guy named Jerry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to let Nick finish his joke.
It was a guy named Jerry. There's nothing else. I had no other things to say. I've proven my point. Boom. Roasted.
Any reference to Jerry from Stratford about the works are not actually about the man behind them. This is significant as it leaves a dead end between the two and disassociates him from his writings. In fact, there is no evidence that links Shakespeare as a writer to Shakespeare of Avon until 1623, 7 years after his death, almost as though the link between the two came later.
It was fabricated.
In his will, there's no mention of books or writings to be given to anyone, which is really weird, as books were extremely valuable commodities that would have been listed in his will had he have owned them. I mean, he mentions a bowl he had and a sword.
Ooh.
He owned a sword, and he left his second favourite bed to his wife.
That's because his mistress needed his first favorite bed.
Well, you know, she's not getting to live inside the house, so the least she can be is comfortable out in the garden.
Yes, exactly.
That's honestly, that's nice. That's just nice.
His son-in-law was a physician who kept incredibly detailed diaries, and he never mentions the fact that his father-in-law was a playwright, let alone the author of Hamlet or any other works famous at the time. And there was no eulogies from any other writers in 1616 when he died. All those eulogies and stuff came in the First Folio, which was released years later.
That's interesting.
I will say, though, that the idea that Shakespeare couldn't have just been a genius that learnt wherever he could also, in my opinion, isn't crazy, and that a lower status person couldn't rise to greatness, I actually find kind of offensive.
There is, something a bit classist in the whole argument, actually.
Because it's certainly not true, even at the time. In the case of Christopher Marlowe, who you better believe is coming up,
Oh, yeah.
he was the son of a cobbler and not a nobleman. So with all that out of the way, and assuming there is something else going on, whether that means co-authorship, a different author altogether, or the best mystery in fucking history, I'm going to be continuing with some of the fun stuff, but I will just mention Diana Price, a Shakespearean researcher who said, after exhaustive and impressive research, if writing plays was a crime, there wouldn't be enough evidence to prove beyond reasonable doubt that William Shakespeare was guilty. So over the years, there have been up to 100 people put forward as the man in tights.
Are you trying to say, actually, that Robin Hood was Shakespeare?
I'd believe that more than anything.
Yeah, I appreciate now that that also references Robin Hood, and I didn't remember that
Man in tights.
at the time. The list contains both the
people's rights.
Forsooth.
The only Robin Hood I want to watch is the Disney animated version.
Yes.
It's the best version, let's be honest. I love Robin Hood Men in Tights, but like the Disney animated version is legitimately amazing.
It's the best one, for sure. On with the podcast.
The list contains both the credible and the incredible, and the claims which started to swing fully in the 19th century actually started during his own lifetime. The reasons being claimed ranging from the man's inability to string a sentence together to the case that he was acting as a front for the problems of either social status, gender, and state security. I was going to go through the long list, and honest to God, just Google it. Because, look, I really, really, really hate, like, the aristocracy and the monarchy and all that stuff. And I just have a really hard time caring about them. So that list was just so depressing. If you want it, Google it. Honestly.
Oh, the list of all the people who've been put forward as alternatives?
Earl Wurglesforth the Seventh and Billingsley von Ripper.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Our family is dropping in status these days. What should we do? Oh, I heard people are putting forth their nephews as possible candidates to be Shakespeare. That will boost our status as a noble family. Oh, yes, let's say that the second nephew, Lord Henry... That one, he was Shakespeare.
But Mama, isn't he a simpleton?
I don't know what gives anyone the idea that our family is full of simpletons. I was able to put together that sentence quite well.
Y'all want some milk? If I'm not part of a scene, I'm just gonna be the milk guy.
One of the top candidates has always been Christopher Marlowe. He was born the son of a cobbler in Canterbury. Nothing is known of Marlowe's early education, which some people would say puts him out of the running because that's an argument against Shakespeare. But that's until he gets a scholarship to King's School in Canterbury, where he would have needed to be able to read and write in both English and Latin. He then gets another scholarship to Corpus Christi College, Cambridge.
Not to be confused with Corpus Christi, Texas.
Which is where my uncle and my aunt and my 3 cousins live.
Add them to the list of possible Shakespeare suspects.
Yep.
This podcast is already going to be long enough, but I do think you have an argument. We need to make sure that there's a strict divide between Corpus Christi, Texas, and Corpus Christi College, Cambridge, because they're so often confused with each other.
I go like, oh, my cousins live in Corpus Christi. They're like Cambridge? And I'm like, no, sorry, Texas. I should have specified.
Also, as part of the will containing the scholarship, Marlowe had to be able to sing a tune and write a verse.
Cool.
Which I thought was pretty sweet, really. He goes there for 6 years, gets all book smart, and then he's involved in a little scandal as a rumour starts that he is off to Reims, France, to become a Catholic subversive. But after some light intervention by the head of the intelligence service and the Archbishop of Canterbury, they let him finish his degree as, quote, if he had gone, it was for the matters touching the benefit of his country.
Ooh.
Which is pretty sexy.
That is sexy.
Oh, all right. That's a strange way to word anything, I'd say, but all right.
While at Cambridge, though, he also had time to translate the works of Ovid into English blank verse, and then write the fucking hit play Tamburlaine in blank verse, which, to put it lightly, reinvented playwriting in that era, which uses iambic pentameter, a play that was so successful that it took London by storm, and was followed by such hits as Dido, Queen of Carthage, Dr. Faustus, The Massacre of Paris, The Jew of Malta, and Tamburlaine 2, in which the key figure Tamburlaine continues to roam across Asia, being what I can only best describe as a total fucking arsehole.
Yeah, but, I mean, how many people are doing free Marlowe in the park every summer? You know what I'm saying?
You know, it's true.
A lot of people might be doing it, but they don't realise it.
Ooh, touché.
Damn, got him.
Marlowe died on the 30th of May, 1593, or so they say.
In a bar fight.
He was stabbed in the face by Ingram Freezer, a money lender and all-round dickhead, while they were dining together with Robert Poley, who was a super cool double agent government messenger, an agent provocateur known for foiling the Babington plot to kill the Queen, and Nicholas Skirres, or Skirres, who is just some guy. After a day spent at Deptford home of Eleanor Bull, who offered for payment room and refreshment.
That's awesome.
That's a really brutal place to stab someone, I feel like.
I just feel if you're going to stab someone, go for anywhere soft.
Yeah, and the face is not soft.
If you get them right through the cheek, though.
Or into their eye, but I mean, but that's...
Ooh, the eye. Yep, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah. Just stab them right in the eye there.
Oh, yeah, stabbed right in the eye, that's really tragic.
I would go in through the cheek and then through the back of the throat, I suppose. Anyway, it's thought that his death might have been a cover-up, as it was well known that Marlowe had ties with the Secret Service, and as the idea of him being an atheist, dissenter, a traitor, a blasphemer began to rise, he faked his own death and began to live a new life undercover. And what was that cover? Other than William Shakespeare, who turns up on the world stage days after Marlowe's death with Venus and Adonis.
That is pretty interesting.
It's a work heavily inspired by Marlowe and very much in his style.
Okay, interesting.
But I'm going to tell you now my opinion on this one. I don't know if Marlowe faked his own death. I certainly think he was able to.
I've not known these details about before I was like, oh no, it's not Marlowe, but I didn't know all of this about spy stuff. That's pretty interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Okay. Marlowe has risen. There, picture a little animated graph of people's names of who it might be, and Marlowe, the little bar at Marlowe for me has just gone up.
Interesting. Also, the fact he's a secret agent is awesome. So, is he maybe Ian Fleming?
I think he might have been Ian Fleming.
For those of you who don't know, Ian Fleming wrote The Chronicles of Narnia.
The next candidate for conspiratorial creativity is Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford. De Vere was an English peer and courtier, which basically means fancy man, and noted particularly for two things. First, being that his temperament stopped him from holding any real government position, which is something I certainly can relate to, which gave him all the time in the world for the thing he loved the most, which was the second thing he was known for, that being poetry and playwriting.
Hey, wait, exactly what do you mean by his temperament?
I think he had what you could describe as a explosive personality.
Got it. He had anger management issues?
Rage problems, yeah.
I think I'm not sure, but he seems to struggle with money. He struggles with personal life and that kind of thing, and makes bad decisions.
Well, when everything's just been handed to you all the time, it's hard to appreciate the value of the money you have. Hence, all of the characters in Jane Austen, you know, who have gambled away their father's fortunes and now are broke. And
Edward de Vere wrote Jane Austen.
that's what I'm saying.
I think his main problem is his constant confusion with his title, where he's like, I'm an Earl, and they're like, your name is Earl? He's like, no, I am an Earl. He's like, what's your last name? Your first name's Earl? Because it's confusing.
We said your name's Earl. No, wait, what?
Yeah, all the Earls were psychopaths. We found this out. It's coming later. It's coming later.
Oh.
And they all wrote poetry.
I just don't know if is coming later.
Oh, wait, I'll bring it up. Y'all be doing research on the side. Maybe Nick did some research.
Notice how Matthew didn't yell, damn it, Nick, when you predicted something? I feel like that's a sign.
That means it's not coming up.
Yeah, if I don't yell it, it's probably not coming. And while a noble of the time, Edward de Vere most certainly wasn't always a gentleman, as he fell out of favour with the Queen and was exiled from the court for getting one of her maids of honour, Anne Vavasseur, pregnant.
Dang.
Like Romeo banished?
Whoa.
Well, no, it resulted in some right on fisticuffs in the street between him and Vavasseur's uncles.
Like Tybalt and Mercutio and Romeo?
Ooh, Mercutio?
He also died having spent almost all of his inheritance like a goddamn renegade. By all accounts, if you had no formal knowledge of Shakespeare, in a world where you'd never even heard the name, and simply had the First Folio of the works and a list of everyone alive during the time, there is almost no doubt that after your investigation, the name you would come up with would be de Vere. And while some of works were first published after his death in 1604, it's still entirely conceivable that with his love of the arts, education and interests alone, de Vere really could have been the author. The question remains as to why in Mushroom Santa's name would you not publish such great works under your own name? Because in a world where I'm a 16th century English gentleman and I'd also just written The Taming of the Goddamn Shrew, you better believe I'm telling everyone.
Hey, I have some thoughts on this. Here's the thing. Is he was a member of the nobility, right? He was a member of court and had a certain relationship with the Queen, who like had the power to give him money or not, as we find out. You know, at some point she exiled him. She ends up giving him like $1,000 a year,
Which has got to be a lot.
in a very Jane Austen way. He makes $1,000 a year. So you want to stay in her good graces, and if you're writing shit that is politically subversive or critical of the ruling party or the royal family, you may not want to publish that under your own name when you could also directly benefit from the ruling party and the royal family. Therefore, you might want to have a pseudonym that you publish under.
Absolutely. It's true. I'd have gone with Penguin Jones. That would have been great.
Penguin Jones.
That is a great name.
Oh, as your pen name. I get it. Okay.
Get it? Pen. Using the start of it so people kind of know.
Oh.
There you go.
But the first reason that he may have wanted to publish anonymously was due to the fact that his plays, while exciting, insightful and thrilling to the masses, kind of pissed off the gentry, exactly as Paula says.
That's right. I know shit sometimes. Boom.
Oh.
And they didn't always shine the brightest of lights on them. The stage spotlight was on, but it hovered more over the deceit, treachery, lies, bigamy, backstabbery, incompetence and stupidity of the aristocracy, along with a big dollop of incest, madness and the profoundly gullible. This is where a pen name comes into play. Not only a pen name, but a patsy. One William Shakespeare, an actor at the theatre he attended and patronised. It's also valuable to note that in the book, The Art of English Poesy, a seminal work at the time, it states, I know many noble gentlemen in the court that have written commendably and suffered it to be published without their own names to it, as if it was a discredit to be learned. And this is because you could write a scientific text, you could write a mathematical text or a philosophical text, but you can't write art. It was seen as something to do with your idle hours. It wasn't seen to be something that you did if you were a noble.
That's really interesting.
I guess it makes sense. It's frivolous, or whatever.
Exactly. There are hundreds of reasons that people believe De Vere to be the true author, but I'm going to concentrate here on 2 lines of thought. The first being the man himself, while the second being the hidden code of the Stratford Memorial.
Dun, dun, dun. Also, are you going to talk about, like, his travels to Italy and the books he had in his library that are directly related
William
to...
Shakespeare, as far as history knows, never left the country. And you've done that thing again, Paula, where I think sometimes you might be possessed by the witch of knowledge of the future times. And guess not only exactly what the next sentence I'm going to say is.
We're just on the same page, you might say.
Come on, that was pretty good, Nick. Give us some credit.
That was good. No, I'll hear it. I just wish I was on the same page. I'm not. Because I'm like, remember when he founded Wendy's? And you're like, Nick, shut up. I'm like, yeah, checks out.
That was a good joke. William Shakespeare, as far as history knows it, never left the country, and ignoring his frankly unknown education, his unknown literacy, his unknown literary...
What are you trying to say?
Oh my God.
Literary evidences?
Abilities.
Literary abilities.
His unknown...
Literary abilities.
And where the hell he could have read any of the at least 250 reference books needed to have composed the plays and sonnets. De Vere did have all those things.
He did. He had them in his library. He had access to them.
But that's not evidence enough to put Shakespeare's words in De Vere's mouth, then spit them on society at large like a bad taste of truth. There are a goddamn shit ton of biographical coincidence that place De Vere in good stead to have written the works of the First Folio. In fact, there was a book published in 1920 by J. Lonely called Shakespeare Identified that looked at the 18 characteristics needed to have written the plays, and only one person came close. He was also the only person to score a perfect 18, and that's De Vere.
Edward de Vere, he wrote Shakespeare, isn't it awesome? Clear also would have been good. Keep going.
And while one coincidence is interesting and 10 might be astounding, hundreds move more into the realm of undeniable. So I have for you some of the many biographical coincidences that pin the ruff of truth firmly around De Vere's neck and screams, "Choke me like you love me."
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we learned something about Matthew today.
I'm with it, dude. Keep going.
And Nick. We've learned something about Matthew and Nick. Noted.
I've gone a bit shy now. The main characteristics include a mature man of recognised genius, not adequately appreciating his time, an enthusiast for Italy, loose and improvident in money matters, and conflicted in his attitudes towards women. De Vere fits them all. But while they may be interesting and even curious, it's nowhere near enough for an indictment against Willie Speakeasy. So here are a few more.
I liked it. I giggled very quietly, but I liked it.
Yeah, I'm down. I just accepted it.
It'll be super loud in the edit. With like echoes and coming from everywhere like it's surrounding. In 1578, during a Latin oration, Gabriel Harvey, a notable author of Latin in the time, said of De Vere, "Vultus televirat," which, as you will all know, unlocked the gates of hell and split De Vere into 8 pieces, all of which were scattered around the world, to be later put back together by a plucky band of wizarding schoolchildren.
Horcruxes.
It actually means, "Thy will shakes spears," which could be the inspiration behind the pen name, though I do find this one very difficult to believe, as it relies on meeting the man from Stratford later on, who is also called Shakespeare, or that the actual Shakespeare didn't exist. But I've already written that stupid wizard joke, so I thought I'd keep it after the main edit of the script, because I was pretty happy.
All right.
I think it was worth keeping in.
Yeah.
It was a Harry Potter joke. I know nothing about Harry Potter other than Horcruxes, I guess.
I was really impressed that you even made a Harry Potter joke, because I thought I was going to make the joke and it was going to be like a coincidence that you said this thing, and I was like, did you know you made a joke about Horcruxes? But you did know, so there you are.
Boom. Horcruxes.
Certainly De Vere loved the arts. He had 28 books dedicated to him in his life. He did write poetry in his youth, and while by all accounts it's not great, it does come across as proto-Shakespearean. I think it was like, look, I looked at this girl and she didn't love me anymore, and then no one understands me.
Sounds a lot like the poetry I wrote when I was 19. It's pretty bad.
I am the mirror. He laughs in my face. No one understands my genius.
Stop reading my journal, Matthew.
Why don't I look like the other girls?
It's gotten too real. Please stop. I'm gonna go cry for a minute now. Y'all keep talking about Shakespeare.
De Vere had 2 theatre troupes. He leased Blackfriars Theatre, which went on to be used by Shakespeare, and he toured Italy extensively, including most but not all of the locations used in the plays. Ovid's Metamorphoses is one of the key works that inspired the work of Shakespeare, and one that Shakespeare would have had to have used the original version, given the punny nature of its use at times. The most notable translation of Ovid's work was by Arthur Golding. Arthur Golding just happens to be De Vere's uncle, and they lived together while he made the translation. Venus and Adonis was a painting by Titian long before it was a poem by Shakespeare. In Shakespeare's writing, it mentions Adonis wearing a bonnet, but Adonis doesn't wear a bonnet in any of the paintings, apart from one. And that's the one in Titian's studio in Venice, a place William never went, but you better believe De Vere was certainly in Venice, giving him a chance to see it.
Okay, here's a thought. Look, I am kind of on, this is one of the things that I'm like, when I said earlier I was going to be on board with some stuff, Edward de Vere is one of the things that I'm pretty on board with. However, he was a patron of the acting troupe that Shakespeare was a part of. Could they have just had like conversations about some of this stuff and then Shakespeare wrote it into his, because
Absolutely.
authors today write, okay, so like I know someone right now writing like a medical drama. She's not a doctor, so she just interviewed a bunch of doctors so that she could get some of the details right.
I absolutely agree with that. I think that, and we'll come on to this later, there are way more variations on what could have happened than just Shakespeare did nothing. And I do think that, if Shakespeare was definitely an actor at the theatre company, he was around these people. You're absolutely right. I think that's a really important point to make, because it's not, because again, I don't like the idea of Shakespeare was just some country bumpkin that couldn't know anything about the arts because of where he was from. I really do find that genuinely offensive.
Yeah,
Because he lives just down the road from where I live, and I'm a genius.
True.
So Shakespeare could have been also.
So Shakespeare could also have come to my level of no, I'll finish that sentence. My level of genius.
I mean, I do agree that he could have gotten some of this information through osmosis, but considering you were talking about earlier, like the amount of like essentially expertise that he has in terms of like, like all the different, medicine and history and all these different things, I feel it'd be hard for one person to get all of that just through osmosis from like knowing people like De Vere and stuff like that. And so I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence I'm like in the middle of both those.
A theory that I'm going to bring up later is something that agrees with the sentence you just said.
Okay.
I think it's hard for any one person to have that volume of knowledge on so many topics.
Yes.
It was a really long list that you said earlier.
If you really think about like the breadth of Shakespeare's plays, it's like, yeah, man, the dude had to have known an incredible amount. And that's why, like, I kind of, it's like, yeah, he could have just, like your friend who's writing the medical drama, like, she interviewed doctors, but she's writing a show about more or less one thing. And so, like, I totally get him being like, hey, De Vere, you've been to Italy. Like, tell me about Venice. Like, I'm writing a play about Venice. Like, there's canals and stuff, but, like, there's, like, a bonnet on a painting, right? Tell me about that.
Actually, Shakespeare doesn't mention canals, I don't think, in any of his depictions of Venice.
Okay, well, see, exactly. He's never been there.
That's
Case
an
solved.
argument some people make.
I think you're wrong there, Paula.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the play, The Little Canal That Could.
Yep.
Oh, You know what? I forgot about that one because a lot of people don't consider that play to be canon. But you're right. You know, it's part of the Apocrypha. So,
Polonius' satire in William Cecil. De Vere happened to live with Cecil after his father died and went on to marry Cecil's daughter. Yeah, that is a little bit weird. In Hamlet, pirates capture him and leave him naked on the shores of Denmark, which parallels De Vere, as he too was captured by pirates and left naked on the shores of England. Venus and Adonis and the Rape of Lucrece are dedicated to Henry Isley, the 3rd Earl of Southampton. Also, it's believed that he may be the fair youth of the sonnets, where in part he urges Southampton to get married, which is kind of weird for a man from Stratford to be urging the Earl of Southampton to get married. But it wouldn't be odd if De Vere had done that, because De Vere knew Southampton and wanted him to marry his daughter. Oxford's Geneva Bible had a bunch of annotations in it made long before Shakespeare wrote his plays, and it was found that the more often a biblical reference is made in a play, the more likely it was to be found annotated, highlighted, or in some way underlined in De Vere's Bible.
Pretty interesting.
That's weird.
It's so cool. But while all these coincidences are super interesting, and I believe make a very strong case for De Vere, it does get all a bit bloody intriguing when you take into account the work of Alexander Waugh, who went and cracked a bloody code.
Well, let's take this, before we start, let's take this code with a grain of salt.
I fully believe it. I don't know what we're talking about. What are we talking about?
I'm with Nick. There's a memorial plaque near Shakespeare's grave, a grave that was surveyed and found not only to be empty, but also only measures 3 foot by 3 foot. And on the epitaph, written on the plaque, that reads, "Stay, passenger, why goest thou by so fast? Read if thou canst to ever's death have plast. While in this movement Shakespeare, with whom quick nature did, with name doth deck this tomb. Far more than cost, see all the he have writ, leaves living art, but page to serve his wit." Now, not only does that not make any sense, it may have intentional mistakes.
Like that one?
Just like that intentional mistake.
What I was doing was I was trying to just be so thematic that I added an intentional mistake to the phrase intentional mistake. It's, as again, I'll reiterate, I'm a genius.
Very meta. Yes, very good.
And oddities that make it really goddamn interesting, which is why it's initially thought that there might be more going on. Now, you're going to have to bear with me as this all gets really technical and Da Vinci Cody, and I'm going to simplify the shit out of it. But this plaque alludes to the question of who is Shakespeare buried with. In fact, it asks you to try and solve the riddle with the first sentence, "Stay, passenger, why thou goest by so quick." This is a question that suggests that wherever Shakespeare is really buried, it's with Plius and his judgment, Socrates with his genius, and Marlowe, who we know as Virgil, with his art. This is all written at the top of the plaque in Latin. Now, that doesn't make any sense, as, of course, he isn't buried with any of them. Maybe in the pages of history, but certainly not in reality.
Well, it sounds like we don't actually know where William Shakespeare of Stratford upon Avon is buried if there's nothing in this particular grave.
Wait, no, we do know this. Did you not see this part of the... We do. It's Corpus Christi, Texas.
Oh, that's right. They shipped him over to Corpus Christi, Texas. Thank you for the reminder,
They're
Nick.
like, we're going to confuse everyone. So, boom, nailed it. My cousins have it. They know where it is.
You know what, though? That would be a good thing. That would be the best nugget of truth in this whole thing. I just love the idea that they dig up some kind of native grounds and find Shakespeare's bones with a ruff and a quill.
With all the original folios and stuff. Just like...
But there are people who were referred to by those names in his time. Edwin Spencer was frequently referred to as the English Marlowe or Virgil. Chaucer was known as the Socrates of his time by many, and at the time there was no Plius, but there was a man referred to as being judicious as Plius, and that's Beaumont. That doesn't say a lot other than maybe the plaque refers to these other men in some way. Maybe. But the plaque is asking you where Shakespeare is actually buried. And it also happens that Spencer, Beaumont and Chaucer are all buried next to each other in Poets' Corner at Westminster Abbey. But to corroborate this story, you can look at the first printing of the sonnets, which...
My cat has decided to start playing with a toy that she never plays with, and I don't want to discourage her from it, but also, it's kind of noisy.
Checks out.
It's a sign.
It's so cute. Oh my gosh, it's so cute, though. She's just laying on the ground, reaching out and batting this little plastic ball in a circle.
If it's cat noises, we keep them in.
Checks out.
All right, well, if you hear any weird sounds, it's the cat.
And also a great scapegoat. But to corroborate this story, you can look at the first printing of the sonnets. Within this, there is the most ingeniously hidden code that it baffles the mind. And frankly, while I watched this and read numerous documentaries and lectures explaining it, I still don't really understand it. I urge you to check out Brunel University's YouTube page and search for the video "Shakespeare was a fake and I can prove it," because it blew my tiny mind.
It's a bit of a clickbaity title.
Any title that says, I can prove it, I automatically believe. I just want to put it out there.
But it was an incredibly interesting video.
It was so in-depth and so interesting that I was genuinely excited while watching it. I loved it. I love a code. I love a secret and a mystery. And that is part of it, that is part of this whole thing, right? I probably have some cognitive bias. And not that I normally want to admit that, but I want this to be true, because it's cool.
I do as well. I honestly, legitimately do, because I love mysteries.
So I have a question then. So we're talking about like codes in this text. That's a pretty common thing that would have happened in this? Is it unusual? Why even start looking for a code? Is it because people are like, oh, it's the Renaissance, tons of codes, people were just doing this, so of course you would look for a code? Or is it like looking for something that isn't there to even suggest that there might be a code hidden here?
I feel as though the doubt came before the search for proof. When you have a massive text, say the Bible or something, right? Mm-hmm. You can go through it and pretty much prove whatever you want to prove.
Yeah.
But they don't just trawl every page. They go, there should be something on page 53. And they turn to page 53 and then they find something that they're looking for. Mm. And it's so many times that they found something that they're looking for. It just seems to make sense. And I feel as though, on the first page 53 of the folio, they find something. And then they say, we need to prove this 3 times, So they find something on the second page. And it's the same thing that they find.
Yeah.
Here's what's interesting about that is then it becomes a question of who put these codes in here. Shakespeare didn't himself put together the folio. It happened after he died. So other people worked with the printer to put things in a specific order, in a specific way. And if this was done on purpose, someone else is ensuring that these things ended up on these page numbers, because Shakespeare didn't do that. Shakespeare didn't know what page number the Merchant of Venice was going to be on in the collection of his works, because he didn't know that his works were going to be collected in this way.
And neither did De Vere.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Who died in 1604. And when was the folio printed?
1623.
1623, thank you.
But if you break the epitaph on the plaque using simple code-breaking techniques, there are, I can only describe as more coincidences than you can...
So you could shake a spear at?
Ooh.
That's true, but I've written that you could smash your head against a wall in a fit of rage against.
Okay, we'll keep yours.
He did write it, Maybe he's Shakespeare!
I think I might be. I simply can't begin to explain all the different parts of the code to you. And again, I urge you to watch Alexander Waugh's lectures that explain in detail. But his method is to prove anything that he claims 3 times, and he does it in such a convincing fashion that I believe simply can't be explained in any other way. And what I found is that you actually find not an odd word alluding to De Vere, you find in a small wall of random letters the full phrase, EDV lies here, South Cross Aisle, St. Peter's at the Westminster.
It's pretty interesting, yeah.
Wow, that's pretty specific.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty specific.
And while one word here or there could be summed up as random chance, to find that phrase, but to find it logically, methodically, and using code-breaking techniques alluded in the books of the sonnets and on the plaque in Stratford comes down to such astronomically low probability that I would say it's impossible. Please, for the love of God, watch that video. It's incredible. I'll link in the description of the podcast and tweet the video out. I watched it twice. It's really, really... Normally I complain about having to watch things twice. Mm-hmm. Not this time. It was great. The codes and ciphers that add up to suggesting that not only did Edward de Vere write the plays, but where he's buried at Westminster under a statue of William Shakespeare, no less.
What?
Prove to me that if de Vere didn't write the plays, someone sure as hell thought he did.
Or wanted us to think he did.
Indeed. Can we pause for a second? The goddamn Roomba turned on, because we're not usually here on Wednesdays, and so it goes on Wednesdays. So let me go turn off this fucking Roomba. Fucking Roomba. Okay, hey.
At the very least, someone really, really smart thought he wrote them. Someone that had control over the memorials for Shakespeare. And I believe those people were Francis Bacon and Henry Neville.
Kevin Bacon.
Francis Bacon and Kevin Bacon.
The Bacon brothers.
The Bacon brothers.
Oh, it's the damn Bacon brothers at it again!
Just writing beautiful poetry and shit.
Stop playing with time!
Wait, Kevin Bacon is Francis Bacon. Just time traveled here and seamlessly integrated into our society.
Well, like he's seamlessly integrated himself into British society, doing the like EE adverts, which is a mobile network here, and everybody loves Francis Bacon now. And I just said mobile instead of mobile.
did.
I don't know what the hell's happening.
You also said
there.
Francis Bacon. I think you meant Kevin Bacon. When everyone does everyone love Kevin Bacon or Francis Bacon now?
Sorry, they're so similar. I get them. I get them confused. His disguise isn't that convincing. So I sent you both a really, really long 3-part documentary to watch.
Sure did.
It was 3 hours. Yeah.
I should. I was like, they're gonna have to watch all of this, and I don't feel that bad because I don't. So I
That's
just
fair.
don't. But I wouldn't normally make you do that. It was called Cracking the Shakespeare Code. I highly recommend you watching this too. It's just really interesting, and it starts off with the what would you call him?
The fake skeptic?
The skeptic.
The fake skeptic?
I wouldn't call. I believe he
Methinks he doth protest too much in the beginning.
I think he kind of retold his journey as he. I think he'd already found out everything to do with the show and then filmed it. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
But I think because at the start, the YouTube comments underneath it are just like, this guy's a dick. But at the end, it's like they're hugging, and it's great. And I see exactly your point. Very good point. So for many years, both Kevin Bacon and Neville, that's right, I said Kevin, were still and are to some extent named as the 2 most likely candidates for the Shakespearean authorship. In this documentary, we find out a bunch more about this, and more so on not only that there are codes in the memorial plaque, but Petter Amundsen, a Norwegian ski instructor and part-time expert codebreaker, believes he found that within the First Folio is a heap of stegographic codes and points towards the authorship being Bacon and Neville. But more likely is the fact that perhaps the codes were entered into the folio of Shakespeare's work by Kevin and Neville to point to a more profound and meaningful inspiration throughout the folio, using again, and I'm going to have to just be painfully simplistic, there is undeniable proof of codes and hidden messages. Whether you believe anything about them is up to your own interpretation, but there are codes in the folio. These range from the coincidence of Bacon and Neville's name being found together in the work not only once but twice, right next to each other, but many other messages that point to the fact that the whole folio... This is where Paula has a hard out. The whole folio was actually published by the Rosicrucians.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is where, remember earlier when I was like, some things I'm going to be on board with Edward de Vere. Some things, definitely not. And this is where I go.
I'm with it. I'm still with it.
This is where it gets a little woo-woo conspiracy for me. I'm
not one to place any faith in a woo-woo conspiracy. Have you seen Denver Airport? It's the shape of a swastika.
Yeah, let's not confuse multiple episodes into one.
So, Denver Airport is... So, before we go on, it's important to talk about who in God's earth the Rosicrucians are. I'm going to be very brief. The Rosicrucianism is both a spiritual and cultural movement from Europe that arose in the early 17th century. This became somewhat of an underground and very forbidden craze as their publications, Fama Fraternitatis, which means all for the fame of the brotherhood to us ill-educated cattle, and Confessia Fraternitatis, which is the confessions of the brotherhood. And while they sound very much like boys love manga to you unindoctrinated weebs, they were, in fact, mysterious doctrines built on esoteric truths of the ancient past which hid insight into the physical universe and the spiritual realm, spouted most definitely from the literature of Kabbalah, Hermeticism, alchemy, and mystical Christianity. The spiritual leader was a man named R.C.
R.C.
Cola.
Cola, yep.
Who invented the most generic cola. Who said...
I love R.C. Cola.
And the Rosicrucians are now, for the rest of time, have to search and find the hidden recipe for this cola.
How many herbs and spices? 11!
Yeah.
You got to dip it in like mercury first and hide it in an underground tunnel. It gets weird. We're switching gears. RC Cola.
RC's meant to be sponsored by RC.
Sorry, Course.
RC Cola is like, hey, you guys want a sponsorship? We're like,
ooh, awkward. Nah. Could you mix it with Cole's Banquet? Although if you You can mix it with coffee, though. That's pretty good. That's the whole thing I do. Do you ever do that? Coffee and Coke?
No, never.
Coffee and Coors Banquet?
No, well, I've done coffee and Coors Banquet, but just next to each other, but not the same glass. But you get an espresso, you put it into into a can of cola. Oh gosh.
No, is that good? That can't be good.
Yuck. We have actually talked about this on a previous episode.
Have we?
We have. I remember because it sounds so disgusting
That sounds
to me.
so gross.
It's like the elixir of prison, God.
Yeah, that's the
It's
joke
great.
you made then too.
I'm nothing if not consistent.
That's right, baby.
R.C. is meant to be buried not only with spiritual treasure, but perhaps with real treasure, as well as his most important book. The idea here, as far-fetched as it sounds, Paula, is that Neville, de Vere, and Bacon, along with perhaps Shakespeare himself, hid the Rosicrucian code in the First Folio, but this leads to the very obvious question. Nick. Well, actually, I thought Nick was going to be more... When I wrote this bit, I thought Nick was going to be less on board. So, Paula.
I did too.
What's the obvious question that the Rosicrucian...
Why?
Yeah, but like...
Why would they do this?
Why'd you think I was going to be on board? Okay, whatever.
You're a skeptic!
You're the skeptic. I thought you were going to have so many
I'm
problems
skeptical
with this, Nick.
about monsters and aliens and demons. I'm not skeptical about like, hey, maybe someone else wrote this. That to me is a very low stakes thing. Hold on. I resent this. No, this is bullshit. I think it's totally fair for me to be like, nah, Chupacabra doesn't exist and all this kind of stuff. Aliens don't own all of Turkey. You know, it's like, no. To be like, maybe someone else wrote Shakespeare. I'm like, what's the evidence?
No,
oh, really? That's kind of interesting.
But this part with the Rosicrucians and the freaking Holy Grail.
Why not? Why not have some Da Vinci Code type shit in here? Why not?
No one's going to mention the Holy Grail. They're going to mention other things that are often...
I know. I'm trying not to ruin what's coming up for you because I know what it is.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like full ass on board. If you want to know, I'm kind of a De Vere guy personally. But it's like...
Oh my gosh, we agree.
Yeah, so here's the thing. It's like I'm not being like, this is it. But I'm just not as like, why are we even talking about this? Like, it's... No, so continue, you bastards.
In their lifetimes... Knowledge, learning, and spiritual learning especially were for those in the know, and not for everyone. And the dissemination of such knowledge was tantamount to blasphemy. It's for that reason that perhaps the Rosicrucians has something to do with the Shakespearean works, as they undeniably include a vast wealth of knowledge, more so by far and on a wider range of topics than any other author: law, politics, medicine, science, navigation, military tactics, all the things from the list I gave you a while ago. All crucial information, or world progressing information, which is what the Rosicrucians were all about. All information that was hidden in what equates to the best entertainment of its day, bigger than Netflix, Disney, and Marvel at the same time. This was the perfect way to educate the masses, right under the nose of the elite.
I like that too. I like that being like, no, everyone should have education. I'm down.
But did everyone know how to crack these codes?
No, they couldn't read.
No, because the information was in the plays. It was, you learn about philosophy and
that was the whole point. It's like they were saying that plays are a
it.
way where everyone can enjoy them. I guess unless you didn't speak the language, but it's just like
Theater is for the people. Art is important.
yeah, and they're saying like illiterate people can still get the knowledge.
it's the fact that, every regular yak herder... We don't have yaks. I could have come up with... I'm here. I could look...
Yeah, what? I mean, there are literally like sheep herders in Shakespeare. Like, you could be making a Shakespeare reference right now. Like, you could be making an As You Like It reference this very moment, and you've blown it, Matthew, frankly.
Well, let's close up shop, okay?
Carry on, Paula, with the rest of the...
That was harsh.
Okay,
Paula.
so then, here's the thing, is the idea is that all of these Rosicrucians have to be looking for something that RC hid. And guess what that thing is? The motherfucking Ark of the Covenant. Now, okay, this is probably the moment where you, like me, are going to go, I don't know, this sounds a little crazy now. What? Does everyone just want to be Indiana Jones? And to that I say, yes, the people in this documentary suddenly become Indiana Jones wannabes.
They make fun of that. They are fully aware of how Indiana Jonesy it sounds. What makes the whole Rosicrucian code hidden in plain sight in the First Folio even more tantalizing is that it seems to Peter Amundsen, at least, to be a lot more hidden information, including the whereabouts of Arcee's tomb, the recipe for the cola, and the treasures within it.
The all-important recipe for the
How
cola
do they
to be
make
drunk
it?
out of. The Holy Grail.
It's there.
If ever there was a holy grail.
It's the recipe for RC Cola. Hi, RC. Get in touch.
Or you just drink RC Cola out of the Holy Grail.
I believe the holy grail, the cup overfloweth with RC cola. I think
That's in Genesis.
Man does not live by bread alone. He also needs some RC Cola to wash it down.
and some Mountain Dew Red Code. Is it called Red Code? I have no idea.
It's definitely Code Red, not Red Code.
We're mixing all kinds of things now. Our sponsors will not be happy.
So, the Colonel's 11 herbs and spices. Sorry, I've made myself laugh in my herbs and spices. That treasure being the original De Vere manuscripts of the plays and perhaps the spoils of the Crusade stolen from Jerusalem in the 1100s, those being the menorah and the Ark of the goddamn Covenant.
Yeah.
But why would the spoils of the Crusades be packaged up with Shakespeare stuff?
Haven't you ever seen National Treasure? I don't know what that has to do with anything. It just feels very National Treasury. You know what I mean?
It does feel very National Treasury.
It feels very National Treasury.
Where's Nicolas Cage in all of this? Can we have Nicolas Cage on the podcast to talk about it?
God, he's American treasure.
Okay, so I'm just gonna have to. I took a very deep breath there just to have the. I was going to take an Ace Ventura breath, but
No, we're talking about Nicolas Cage right now, not Jim Carrey. But thank you for trying.
They're different people. One of them is Canadian.
So, the Rosicrucians are a powerful group of people, right? The gentry, the powerful, the rich. Who else is going to have the spoils of the Crusades in the 1100s other than some weird religious order? And then the Rosicrucians get them. That's right. And who's a Rosicrucian? Well, it's Francis Drake. And it's, Henry Neville.
I think you meant Francis Bacon.
It's been... there's a problem is. And Francis Bacon.
And both of them.
And also Drake.
I'm not convinced Kevin Bacon isn't in some way.
So let's get this straight. We got Francis Drake. We got Francis Bacon. We got Kevin Bacon. We got Drake. We got Henry Neville. We got Neville Longbottom.
Yep. Thank you
Okay,
for
good.
going
Just want to
there.
make sure we got everybody covered.
Yes.
Okay, they're all Shakespeare?
They are all Shakespeare.
They're all Shakespeare.
They're all the Horcruxes. Shakespeare. Edward de Vere split himself.
Are there 7 of them? Hold on.
And there's a piece of him in all of these identities. We have to destroy them all for Shakespeare to actually be dead. That's why there's no one in the grave.
That checks out.
Oh, I like that,
Oh, I
actually.
made Matthew laugh.
The point you're missing, Paula,
What? What is it, Matthew?
is that the real Shakespeare is in all of us. But I'm not saying it's the real menorah and the real Ark of the Covenant. All I'm saying is whatever relics were in Jerusalem during the Crusades that were looted, brought back to Europe, possibly brought back to Scotland, which is a whole other thing. Possibly those relics, not like a real face-melty Ark of the Covenant. It was just like whatever the people in Jerusalem were displaying as those relics at the time. When someone says, I've got a piece of the cross, my thought isn't, is that really a piece of the cross? My thought is, I wonder where that relic came from at some point.
That's fair.
And where is this tomb? RC's tomb? Which really... It sounds like some fun uncle, but it's...
Oh, RC.
Hey, Uncle RC, where is your tomb?
That's where Uncle RC keeps all the weed he lets us smoke sometimes. We don't tell our parents.
Exactly. In his Coca-Cola empire.
I think it was cocaine he had. Yes, Peter Amundsen, using his incredibly convincing and persuasive code-breaking analysis, by the means of what I
Incredibly convincing and persuasive, I think, might be up for debate.
I think he's pretty persuasive.
and by means of what would have to be the most powerful series of coincidences in the world, they're on Oak Island, Nova Scotia, baby.
That's why Drake went.
Why?
Because he's Canadian.
Because he was on Degrassi, right?
Yeah, he was the kid who got shot.
He was on Degrassi Knoll. Drake killed Kennedy.
Degrassi, no.
Oh my god. Nice.
That was a good one, Matthew. Matthew, that was a good one. I want to acknowledge your comedic genius.
Thank you. I didn't think we'd be talking about Oak Island when I first started my research, but it was on my list of things to look into because I don't know if you know anything about Oak Island.
I don't really.
I don't.
It's super cool, but the main thing about Oak Island, Nova Scotia, is that for hundreds of years, people have said there's treasure there, and they've been looking for it. And this all just ties in so nice.
You think the treasure they say is there is this treasure, the Rosicrucian treasure?
Yes, I do. I really do. Look, I am really happy to believe in this.
Like, what's the drawback of believing in it? Nothing. Believe what your heart tells you.
Vast disappointment, like believing in anything or anyone. But yes, I just feel it all adds up. It all makes sense. But the thing is, right, with this whole map, so the whole map that they forged out of the First Folio, right, is a map that where you put the Tree of Life over the page and stuff, because it's all alluded to in the texts and of the plays, and it's just, you kind of look around, and my thing is, right, so they found these 5 boulders on Oak Island that were definitely put there by
Yes.
Matt. That's indisputable, unless it's because they're geometrically aligned, right?
Yes.
If you add the rest of that, of the symbols, of these positions that would be on the Tree of Life, oh man, it's so cool, because the what convinced me the most is that they didn't go there just digging up the whole island. Peter Amundsen said there should be something exactly here and there should be something exactly there. And these were 2 boulders that they were looking for. They said, look, if my code, if what the map I've created out of this book is correct, what I'm looking for should be exactly there. And they went there, used all their GPS stuff, dug one hole, and it was there. There were more boulders, more man-made, like man-positioned boulders. And that was like, what? I just think that if Shakespeare's original, like, text isn't there, or the, Ark of the Covenant and the menorah and all that kind of stuff, fine. But there's something there. There's something there, definitely.
It's the recipe for RC Cola, as we've already discussed.
Yes, obviously.
And isn't that worth dying for?
I'm kind of with you, Matthew. I'm not quite as like 100% convinced, but here's the thing with me. It's like with this kind of stuff, because I talked about it earlier. It's like I have no what's the word?
Empathy, sympathy.
Oh my goodness, I think that's a different conversation.
No love in my heart. No, I have no stake in this. Like, if this ends up being true, cool. If not, whether or not Shakespeare wrote these, I don't care. Honestly, I just don't care. Like, it doesn't change the fact that I love those plays. It doesn't change like how great they are. None of it matters to me, honestly. So I'm very open. Earlier you said both of you were surprised at how not skeptical I was, and I'm just like, no,
I've been very surprised.
I'm an open book on this one. I'm with it. So because I'm gonna go ahead and say this is my call, because I love movies like National Treasure. I love this whole, like, there's codes inside these words. We did all this stuff to break, and then down here there's treasure. Like, I love, and also love, like, like books like Da Vinci Code, or like Angels and Demons, like finding all these things and like going on these big crusades from clue to clue to clue to find. I love these kinds of stories, and I want one to be true. So I'm going with this one.
2 more points before Paula destroys us with facts.
I would never destroy you. I love y'all. I would never destroy you. I might tell you you're wrong and stupid, but I would never destroy you.
That destroys my heart.
Look, the thing is, as well, is the way that they found this this map, right, was to do with the constellations. And then they looked at the constellations and stuff that were referenced in the folio, and they found that this, like, the Chimera, and they looked for the Chimera things, and then they looked for the most important stars and stuff. What it all boiled down to, what Peter Amundsen went down, in a lot of people's opinion, would be some kind of ridiculous rabbit hole where you're just adding things together to make a hole that doesn't exist.
You're working backwards from the solution you want to find to see how you can get there, and then saying that working backwards was proof of the solution.
I would agree with that normally, but the solution he was trying to find was, where is the treasure? Not the treasure is on Oak Island. Because the map he found, because when you take a globe, which is the like the constellation globe, when it kind of like the constellations are mapped out to where they would be, like
above the sky,
in reference to the Earth, above the sky, he said the treasure should be buried here, and that place he found out was Oak Island. That's what got him to Oak Island, and to me that was not saying I want it to be Oak Island. Let's see if I can prove it's Oak Island. That was, oh, well, I guess it's on Oak Island then. What's there? And the second thing is, I'm worried I know more about the Shakespeare conspiracy than I do about Drake, because I really don't know anything about
That's
Drake
okay.
even
You don't
at
need to know
all.
anything about Drake. It's fine.
Paula.
Yes, Matthew.
Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you're really thinking.
Gosh.
No. Don't tell me what you're really thinking. Just tell me what you think about
Yeah, I don't think
this
anyone's
specific
ready
topic.
to hear what I'm really thinking. It might make things awkward.
It's darker in there because of the light that you
That's
shine.
true. The shadows are much darker. That's really what it is.
I hate to admit this, but you've almost said some things that sound kind of reasonable.
Thank you.
So
I'm pretty sure you were not talking to me, but I'm going to go ahead and you didn't specify, so I'm going to go ahead and take credit for it. Thank
sure, whoever heard that statement and wants to pretend it applies to them is welcome to.
Whoever needs that the most.
Yeah, you take that and you internalize it. Because when we first got to this portion, I was like, y'all, this is kind of where I'm out. As soon as we start bringing up like the Ark of the Covenant, it goes so woo-woo conspiracy theory.
Oh, for sure it does.
I just like that. I was like, I just think I have to bail on this. Like, I don't think we're no longer just talking about like who wrote Shakespeare. We're now talking about some vast mystery, treasure, conspiracy.
You're right. It is cool.
It's like so hard to believe the amount and like why. I keep going back to like why. Why is this happen? Like, why would they do this? Why would they go to Nova Scotia to bury this stuff? Why there? But then you say this stuff like, and then I was like, well, I mean, whatever. Like, he made it be Oak Island, and look, these lines just happen to line up. Like, any lines just work like that. That's how lines work. But then you were like, well, they did use the constellations of where they were. They did use an old map, and they did this, and it just happened. And I was like, I don't know.
I get so excited about this because if you look at the place names around there and stuff, and then there was that guy who was working for Kevin Bacon, I think it was, or was it Kevin Smith? And that guy was working for Bacon, right? He said where you go. He went missing for a few years to go do a project. And when they asked him, and he was like a well digger and stuff, they asked him where he was. He says, I'm off to go build the new Solomon Temple. All I will say is, yes, I desperately want this to be true. I really do, obviously.
It is. I mean, it's cool. If it's true, it is really freaking cool. It's exciting.
100%.
It's neat. The idea that anyone that you could discover, like, who doesn't want to discover an actual mystery?
And treasure maps. Everyone always wants to find a treasure map.
Yeah, like, that's why we watch movies like National Treasure, or we watch series
we don't.
like...
Who is watching this?
It's so good. It is legitimately a great movie.
Well, I mean, I'm not willing to go that far, but
It's great. It's a fun adventure movie in a genre. We're going to talk about movies. Hold on. Screw this story. The most underused genre is adventure movies. Like, I miss adventure movies, like, where it's just fun adventure, like Treasure Hunt, like The Mummy, or like, it's like adventure movies are so great. I love adventure movies.
I'll admit, it's why I liked Stargate so much, the film. That was ace. It was cool. It was an adventure.
Yeah, it's like they made Indiana Jones and everyone's like, this is amazing. And then they're like, yeah, we don't need to make like any more of these kinds of movies. I love adventure movies.
well, and I think part of that desire to like, I love an adventure. I love a treasure hunt. To me, that makes it harder for me to believe that this thing is actually real, because it sounds like a thing people are manufacturing just because they want so badly for it to be true. Until I hear that someone has actually dug up a menorah or something.
I don't think they will find the menorah and all that kind of stuff, right? Maybe they will. That'd be so amazing.
I don't think so. I think they'll find some stuff. I don't think it's going to end up being like, all the spoils from the Crusade, all that kind of. That's where like I kind of, I'm with Paula. I'm with you in that kind of thing where I'm just like, this was about like Shakespeare and like who wrote Shakespeare, which to me is such a simple story in terms of like, hey, who wrote it? Here's all these kind of ideas. And then it turned to this whole like, yeah, but like now the treasure and like it's turned into so much more. To me, it's like Shakespeare is like the smallest part of it.
Well,
and it's so hard to believe that I don't know. So I want them to find it. Don't get me wrong, but I'm still skeptical. But I'm going with this one because, like Matthew, you said, like the amount of coincidences that happen in this whole situation are staggering. I mean, really, really staggering. And I'm like, yeah, why not? Because again, I have no stake. I don't really care. So it's just like, to me, I'm like, yeah, why not? Shakespeare wasn't real.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, I think really what we're talking about here are two different things. Because I think there's one thing about like, who was Shakespeare and did someone else write the Shakespeare plays? And then I think when we get into this stuff, I think it's a completely different mystery.
yes.
That's fair.
Because I don't think Shakespeare wrote into his plays clues about where the freaking Ark of the Covenant is buried.
Would you like to hear some of my theories?
Yes.
Theory 1. Neville and Bacon, with or without De Vere, wrote the plays to anonymously forward the Rosicrucian message that went against the church and monarchy of the time, that all men should be learned and use Shakespeare as a front. It all went south. The reward for Shakespeare, of course, being fame and fortune.
Okay. I'm kind of
Right.
with that.
Shakespeare was a patsy in case everything went terribly wrong.
I don't think he existed at all. I think his name was Jeff.
Mr. Bridges, are you telling me... Theory 2, Shakespeare was a great writer himself and a member of the Rosicrucian order and was willing to work with Bacon and Neville and also De Vere in a joint effort for the same reason and to the same end, to spread knowledge of history, science, art, philosophy to the masses.
Okay.
I also agree with that, except for his name was still Jeff.
Mr. Goldberg, sorry.
How many? You have to do it a third time because I need to know what third Jeff he's going to reference.
I don't think I know anymore.
You've got Bridges, you've got Goldblum.
Theory 3
Oh.
is that Bacon, Neville and De Vere, in some grouping, used the work of Shakespeare with or without him to push the same agenda. So those three are, basically, in some order, eventually the texts, whoever they were written by,
Jeff Bezos.
were co-opted. That's a good one, damn it. My theory, though, is this. Edward de Vere, the Earl of Oxford, wrote the vast majority of the works, in part or co-authored with the likes of Christopher Marlowe. They were published under Shakespeare's name, as he was the man who bought and sold plays to the theatre and performed them, and this was to allow the whole project to maintain some anonymity. This is because Shakespeare was in on the whole endeavour, along with Bacon and Neville, to illuminate the masses with the knowledge in the plays, as they were all Rosicrucians, I believe. Later, with the publication of the First Folio, after De Vere's death, that the codes and ciphers were painstakingly entered into the work, all with the hope that it could be used to let only those in the know and in the order understand what happened to the valuables that are now on Oak Island. And while this theory, it may seem a mere amalgamation of many other possibilities into one grand conspiracy, I also think it makes the most sense. That it had to be a group effort, that everyone had to be in on it, that in order to create not one but three masterpieces within the folio. That of the art and beauty of the plays, the knowledge maintained in them, and the codes used to hide the whereabouts of the original manuscripts. It was more than one man could do, even if that man was the genius of De Vere or a very good actor from Stratford named William.
I mean, it's super interesting. It's super, super interesting. And if it's true, it really makes... I mean, I'm already fascinated by Shakespeare. Just like the works of Shakespeare. And if all of this stuff is true, it makes them even more fascinating.
Totally agree. That's why I said, like, I have no mistake. Like, if this is all true, that actually makes me like Shakespeare's plays more. So I'm like, cool. I hope so.
One thing is true, and that's that the authorship of Shakespeare is in question. Whether or not that is the right question to ask is up for anyone to answer. What's important is that whoever wrote those plays and those sonnets, be that one person, a group, or alien lizards from another dimension.
Probably not that.
It's not a theory, but fuck it, but it might as well be. Let's get that in the mix.
Might as well be.
But what about Pigman?
Throw Pigman in there. Why not? We always throw Pigman in.
Whoever wrote those plays, in some ways, it really doesn't matter. They are and will remain always, as long as we walk the earth, the greatest literature of all time.
Well,
in my opinion.
That's a grand statement. They were pretty fucking good.
Not knowing who wrote them doesn't make Romeo and Juliet any less tragic. It doesn't make Titus Andronicus any less treacherous. And it doesn't make Sonnet 18 any less beautiful.
I like that you referenced Titus Andronicus, one of the lesser-known plays. I saw a production of it done last summer that was pretty enjoyable. It doesn't get produced very often because it is brutal.
It is. Mike was in it, actually, now that I think about it. My brother Mike. Yeah, I think so. I'll have to ask him for sure. But
I wrote a 6-episode sitcom once set in a theatre. The sitcom was called The Death of the Mercury Theatre, and it was magical realism themed, basically. So the actors who were putting on Titus Andronicus thought they were the actual people.
Oh my
So
god. That's a dark sitcom.
Hilarious.
it was very, very clever. Yeah, it did get rejected by the BBC.
Well, most people do, so it's okay. It took Stranger Things 10 years to get made. So
They just didn't read the whole thing, because the problem with magical realism is the first 10 pages, right? Nothing that weird happens. That's how magical realism works. It kind of grows, right?
Yeah, you don't. If you come all the way up front, then it's not interesting.
I put a lot of effort into that. Oh my.
that's
Keep
okay.
it.
That doesn't mean it can't get made at some point.
Nah.
Paul and I live in LA. We got connections.
Scrap it. Start again. That's my thing. Or my main thing is to get really close to finishing something, then decide it's terrible.
That's just the creative process, though.
Put that in a drawer for 6 years.
Yeah, it's great, and then it's shit. And you just have to keep
Yeah.
going before it can get great again.
I was going to spend a lot of time when I researched this. I was going to enter my own code into the First Folio and make people look through the book, and it was going to say Matthew is great, but I just quite simply did not have the time.
I like where your head's at, though. Actually, somewhere within the recording of this podcast, there is a code. Can you find it? Email us, deathbymonsterspodcast@gmail.com.
It's going to be the one part of the show where all of a sudden it goes, Schnurst yumfet. Yeah, that is me pretending to say Death by Monsters backwards, because I have to listen to the theme tune a lot.
Wait, are you saying it?
I'm that good at going, Schnurst yumfet.
He studied it for weeks of how it sounded backwards.
Sorry, I have one more thing I want to say, and I don't know if it fits in anywhere, but I'm just still thinking about this idea of like the Rosicrucian being like, we need to use these plays to educate people. And I just think that is such a fascinating and just like what a great way to view art. Art is a service. We use it to educate people, to expose them to ideas and to people and to feelings that maybe they don't get to see. And like, I'm just like feel pumped by that idea. Oh my gosh, have I just been converted to being a Rosicrucian?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great idea, dude. It's a good thing. It's like, that's why arts are so important.
Look, the smarter you are, the easier it is to be indoctrinated into a cult. You do realise that, don't you?
It's true.
That's
That's why I say I'm too smart for a cult. I just want to be in one. I did spend a week with the Moonies once. That was fun.
We're going to have to talk about
Sounds
that later.
great.
Hey, thank you for listening to Death by Monsters on our episode all about Shakespeare. If you liked this episode, you know what you could do? You could like go to iTunes or wherever you listen. I'm sorry, it's called Apple Podcasts now, or wherever you listen, and you could rate and review the podcast. It really helps just get us out. It just helps with the algorithm. We just get in front of more people, or like tell a friend, or just like listen and enjoy it, or just download it even if you don't listen to it. Like the download number helps as well. This has gone off the rails.
Yeah, I hate listening to it. I don't care.
Please, the best thing you can do for us really is just tell someone about the show. That'd be super helpful. I'd appreciate it vastly. We're trying to put a lot of work into this, and we really would. If you could just find someone that you know who might enjoy it, we would love for you to tell them about the show. And then force them to download it.
Every single episode. And also, you could force them to follow us on Twitter or on Instagram, or join our Facebook group.
Yeah.
We are in all of those places, and we post on them. So
if you have a home strange story of your own where we say your weird, freaky stories, then send that into deathbymonsterspodcast@gmail.com. And hey, try to keep it to a page.
You know, I mean, I love how enthusiastic people are, but shorter is not always bad. You know what I mean?
I got sent what I can only describe as a short Stephen King novel recently.
But hey,
it was very good.
I love it though.
Those of you who wrote a long thing, thank you so much for taking the time to do that. We're not trying to shit on
But
you.
we did not read them.
No.
We refuse to read them.
I print them out, then I burn them. Well, I really, really appreciate it. Everything you've sent us in so far for those Home Strange have been fantastic.
It's been serious. It's becoming one of my favorite parts of the whole thing is reading and then doing the Home Stranges.
Looked at some pictures of a creeper doll recently someone sent us.
Real quick. But I want to give a shout out to our new sponsor, Corpus Christi, Texas, the city.
Yes, thank you, Corpus Christi.
Appreciate you, Corpus Christi. Thank you.
And RC Cola.
Free hotels.
Have your people call us.
RC Cola. Okay, so we got 4 sponsors now. Great. Okay, cool.
Disclaimer, we are not sponsored by any of these people actually in real life.
I don't know about that. Corpus Christi loves us.
Hey, oh my gosh, thanks again. We're going to let you go. I am Paula Deming.
I hate this bit. I'm Matthew Jude.
And I'm Nick Murphy.
And you've been listening to Death by Monsters. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.